For all the things you'll hear about Hollywood, I'm always startled how normal everybody...
Perhaps some people would love me, perhaps I could get some approval, perhaps I could get some pleasure. I sort of remember, oh yeah, that doesn't ever work, ever.
It doesn't make you happy. It never did. I mean, history will tell you that. And fame certainly doesn't make you happy. You know, people will tell you that who were famous.
As a Beatle, we made it, and there was nothing to do. We had money, we had fame, and there was no joy.
Happened. As the show got more successful, I got more depressed.
You don't chase it anymore like oh, I need the Transformers, I need that.
No, I ran from it because it was not serving me. It was destroying me. That's when I was getting really drunk and fucked up. That was all during that time when I just felt like I was becoming soulless.
Fame, luxury items, and glamour are not real and cannot solve you. Whether it's a pair of shoes, a stream of orgies, a movie career, or global adulation, they're all just passing clouds of imaginary pleasure.
It's true, you know, although I still got those shoes.
And plus, there's no culture in celebrity culture. Zero.
Fame is a bit like open heart surgery with a spoon, really. It takes time. There's enjoyable moments, and there's other moments where you go, oh no.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's like your reality is so detached from that. It's a totally different situation.
Really quick answer to that. It's fine when you're doing fine. And when you're not doing fine, it's one of the most awful things in the world because you have to lie and pretend that you're doing well, and you don't even understand why you have to do that. But the key thing is that the reality of I'm going to be famous and it's going to make me happy, you know, is wrong. It does do some great things. Yeah. What you want is an on-off button. That's what you want. You want to be able to turn it off when you want to and turn it on when you do.
For all the things you'll hear about Hollywood, I'm always startled how normal everybody is. I don't know if it's just the angle I get to see but all that pageantry and shit, that's completely unsustainable. Nobody can do that all the time. Somewhere, somehow, you're just going to be yourself.
Isn't it weird that that's what we think about when we think about Hollywood? We think about red carpets and people with tuxedos on and ridiculous watches and purses and all just standing there on the red carpet.
It's a tough one.
It's weird.
I mean, I don't knock, and by the way, I don't knock anybody for doing that at all. I don't think, but that, you know, that ain't what we doing.
No. I'm not interested.
No, it's fun sometimes.
It's just so weird. It's so different than real life.
Yeah, but in a weird way, that is their real life. That's a work thing.
It's a peak work thing. It's like, this is peak glam. Ta-da!
But this thing where, and I think this is changing in the culture. Remember, there was this thing about celebrities could never be unhappy.
Yeah.
Fuck that, man. That's you know, I'm not saying they should display that, but just assume everybody has a bad day.
Right.
Fuck that red carpet face. I don't want to make that fucking face for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I think, you know, as I get older, I'm overwhelmed by how human we all are. It really makes me like people more and forgive people more. And
that's important. That's everything. Forgive people.
And forgive yourself. Everyone did something.
Forgive yourself.
I just think that I don't know, in this season of my life, I'm into, hopefully I'll do something. I will make this mean something other than just the trappings of success, how hot my whip is, or, you know, how pretty my bitch is and all this stupid shit that we have been trained to focus on. I wanted to be better than that.
What do you want to do? Do you have an idea?
I have some ideas. Nothing I would really want to. I don't want to make any public declarations because then I'm going to have to do the shit. But I, as just a general rule, and by the way, there's so many surprising ways that you can be of use to people. Not big things. Everyone always trying to hit a homer, but sometimes it's smile you muster for a person, or, you know, it's a lot of things you can do. I just try to, you know, walk softly on the earth and have some fun, you know. But I just know that investing celebrity into getting more celebrity is a treadmill I don't feel interested in running on in the twilight of my life.
Right.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, no, you get it. You know what it's like to be famous.
Yeah. And I'm not mad at fame. When you say fame, I'm not mad at that. Celebrity, well, that's the one.
What's the difference?
It's fine. I was talking to Letterman about it. Celebrity is the role. That's the one on the red carpet. You're famous. It's not that you're not a celebrity, but it's not like you're sticking your pinky toe out on the red carpet. And you're not going places and people saying, "What are you wearing?"
Right.
You didn't make your life about that. You're not tethered to endorsements and this, that, and the other. You're tethered to yourself, to your journey, to your life, which makes it meaningful.
Right.
For you to talk the shit that you talk, even in this context, there's a courageousness that you have to. You're subject to so much outside scrutiny. But you do it anyway. And that's why it's courageous. You're relentlessly yourself. This is a practice skill. Takes some consistency. You have to choose in the beginning. You have to take an inventory, know who you actually are. Some people think they are the famous guy. Fame is your circumstances. It's not necessarily who you are. Trust me, when I left the show, I wasn't famous. It was circumstances that I left behind. I mean, I was famous, but it wasn't that thing.
Right.
It's different.
Just be calm. When things are going well, be calm. Don't think you're on top of the world in the sense. You always got to be wary because I've seen it. I've seen people come. I've seen people go. I've seen them come. I've seen them go. You got to be chill. You got to just take what's good in your life and move forward cautiously and carefully. And thank God that you have that. Just it's very, very important not to overextend yourself when you think you've got it. That's no such thing. Everybody's dispensable.
Most comics that I know do have a little bit of a sadness to them, but that's not the case all the time. I know some people come from very normal, happy. I came from a very happy background, very, very happy.
Do people always expect you to be funny?
Yes, and I'm not that way. I think I'm pretty boring. So, yeah. People think you're the thing that you played in the
Hangover or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've said it before, but I don't think anybody would go up to the guy that played the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz and go, "Oh, you're not really a Scarecrow?" You know what I mean? So people, they get confused sometimes.
Isn't that still a bit like being in prison then?
Yeah, but it's a prison of your choosing. And everyone's got some kind of prison. And it's much, I like my prison to be the one I've decorated. As I've gotten older, man, that aspect, just having anonymity, it's very difficult to realize how valuable anonymity is. I mean, just walking down the street and not worrying about stuff is so unbelievably important. And it doesn't matter about anything else. You don't need anything else.
You didn't have much else by the sounds of it out there.
Really, yeah, but just being able to stand and just, looking in hundreds of miles around you and just knowing that you're doing what you want to do, and no one's witnessing it. You can be yourself.
It had to be hard to be a young, really famous, really good-looking guy during the age of no internet. And, the world was a wild place. I mean, you were really famous in the 80s.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, all of the mistakes that I made, all the things that I learned got me to where I am today, and I could not be happier, and I needed some fucking comeuppance, and I needed some of that humbling and stuff. On the other side of it is what's the point of being fucking famous today? Really, I don't know if there's a point.
So dangerous. I know, right?
I don't know. I mean, forget the lack of privacy, the lack of crazy fun, which you can't have.
Right.
Everybody's lying in wait.
Your life of growing up famous that doesn't end well for most people. You're remarkably together for someone who grew up famous. You know, it's a weird way, it's a weird alchemy to put together a human being where in your developmental stages, pre-teen in fact, you're hugely famous.
Yeah.
What do you think that did for you?
What did it do for me?
Do you think that's a good thing? Or do you think it's a manageable thing?
I would say it isn't recommended because, like I kind of said in the beginning of this, it's like jumping in the deep end of the pool and not knowing if you can swim or not, and it can go one way or the other. Luckily, I swam.
But it almost always goes the wrong way.
I know.
Almost always.
And that I don't think comes very recommended, and I wouldn't recommend it. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I've kind of been given this like special, I don't know, kind of special understanding of, I don't even know where it comes from because I'm really not religious, and I maybe it comes from like education of getting a good understanding of, you know, I've got kind of a good idea of like what fame does on kind of like if we're looking at it from a level of.
Were you thinking about this when you were young?
I wasn't thinking about this when I was young, but I started thinking about it at the time where I think it kind of mattered that I could go one way or the other, and that was probably when I was 17 and I bought Dr. Amen's book about understanding, like, kind of, I get it, why I can't get high enough, like, on drugs, and why I end up doing more drugs than anybody else. I wrote a song where one of the lines says, I'll go toe-to-toe like I'm Ali, like I'll do more. There could be the biggest guy in the room, and I'll say, I'll be able to do more drugs than you. But it's because my level of what high is I felt it from, I mean, when you're having 15,000 people scream your name and sing along to your songs, it's like, you know how you're saying your float tank is getting high without drugs? It's like that, but times a billion.
No, I'm sure.
So it's really hard to come down off that. And I never luckily had a problem with like taking downers to bring myself down, but there was a lot of people around me that was like, you know, just take half of these and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm lucky I didn't start messing with downers.
I think it also might have to do with your head injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that.
There's a real big connection between people with traumatic brain injury and the need for either alcohol or cocaine or something to perturb your natural state of consciousness.
And a lot of my brain is really, really on. It's got like overactivity. But then again, if you kind of look at the part, that frontal lobe that kind of tells you, you know, yes or no, or stops you from making a bad choice. Mine gets a little sleepy sometimes when I'm not doing, especially when it comes to the diet. When my diet isn't, you know, it's annoying because I do like to, one, I'm country, so I like to eat bad food. I had never, my mom used to get mad if I would tell her I don't want butter. Like my mom is
Butter's
like,
great for you.
Yeah, now I'm fine. But I just remember growing up, my mom, you know, we ate frozen waffles and all that. We don't know anything about nutrition. I grew up on that country diet, and so I learned a lot. I mark a lot of my, I guess, kind of like my grounding in the weight that I have to my diet, to my supplementing, to my maintenance, to the diligence, to the sport that being an entertainer is.
It is a sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Are you the boss?
Yes, I'm the boss.
You're the boss.
I'm the boss.
Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone that you can consult with when shit is weird?
I send faxes back and forth to Dolly Parton because that's how she communicates.
Oh, shit.
That's how we communicate.
Listen, that if you need a mentor, that's the mentor.
Exactly.
And there's a woman who's done it.
And I kind of, I try to kind of, you know, my life moves so fast. I try to kind of send her a little kind of rundown of what's going on every other month.
You guys fax
She
each other?
faxes me, then I send an email and they fax to her.
How do you stay free of all the clutter with social media and everybody has an opinion? Because remember, back in the days, it used to be if it was a movie, it was Siskel and Ebert, it was probably a critic. Now everybody's a critic.
Yes.
And everybody got something to say, and it's right on your screen.
Yes.
How do you not pay attention to that?
I think you have to pay attention to it.
Really?
And yeah, I think you have to pay attention to all sides of it. You can't get your news source from one thing or just listen to one critic. I think, actually, like, I mean, it's a long conversation, but I don't think criticism is bad. I think what you're talking about is different. You're talking about like vitriol on the internet.
Yeah,
just straight hate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like with this theater group, you know, I show up and like social media dissipates when you see like 250 people in the room really reaching for something.
Right,
really
right.
reaching
Like
for
where are
something
they
epic.
now?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we actually get off the internet, get together and connect.
I heard that, and bond.
Yeah,
see
connection.
each other, what's in the room.
That's what the internet was built on. You know, what drew us all to that social media was this longing for connection. And so I'm really, with the performance art and this theater space, is we've been trying to like bring that connection off the internet and actualize it in front of you. And I have a lot of that in my life, a lot of connection, which keeps me grounded and and keeps me feeling loved.
How do you not go underwater with Hollywood?
Because I'm not really in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I sort of navigate around it. I since Transformers, I've been finding interesting ways to sort of stay afloat and work with filmmakers that I really like. If you were to bring David Ayers in here, he's very human, you know? And he brings guys like Bobby in, who make me even more human when you're on a set. So it's not like I'm working in Hollywood. I work in and amongst Hollywood.
You don't chase it anymore like oh, I need the Transformers, I need that.
No, I ran from it because it was not serving me. It was destroying me. That's when I was getting really drunk and fucked up. That was all during that time when I just felt like I was becoming soulless. I couldn't navigate myself anymore. I just felt like I was dissipating. And so
where does that come from? Is that demand? Is that
it's the guys you look up to? I always looked up to the quiet sufferers, so I chased that. But I also looked up to like people who are transparent, people who are honest, the real ones. That's why we always got along, and why I always listened to you. And not to like toot your horn, but really it's a big reason people mess with you is because you are sincere and you are transparent and you are ironic and funny. But if you were to spread that out, like I've been listening to you my whole life, school bus.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
Me too.
Yeah. Probably all of us in this room. But yeah, I'm like that with actors too. Like my favorite actors are the ones who actually really open up, not the ones who do tricky voices and tricky this, tricky that.
Right.
But like the ones who open up and show you the truth.
Genuine.
Truth is infectious. It's it's addictive. Sincerity, truth is addictive, and that's why you have the following you have. That's why I've been chasing what I've been chasing. Is I'm trying to get back to like authenticity.
What kind of problems have you dealt with? What are the biggest downfalls of being a famous creator? Because every kid watching this wants to be you. Or
I
Logan.
think if I'm being honest, it's more the fame has been more of a problem than the money. I think if I was like a private, quiet millionaire, billionaire, I think life would be easier than being a famous millionaire, billionaire. I think with me, a big problem, especially with my ex, or any of the girls I was with, like having people always just constantly coming up to us, like all the time, like even when I'm like eating dinner, and normally with someone like, let's say, I remember I went to, what's it called? I think it's Hakkasan or Novikov. I think it was Hakkasan, and Fredo was there. Keanu Reeves was there. They're all just chilling. And, I was there and I was like, out of all those three people, everyone would just come to me. Like, I would be the one that people would just walk to and just be like, hey, yo, what's up, bro? How you doing? Someone like Fredo, they'd just be like, oh, shit, that's Fredo. And leave it at that. Or Keanu Reeves, you just look and be like, fuck, and that's it. Whereas with me, it's like, you come up to me. You demand the photo.
75?
75, yes.
Yeah, so that's when I first met you.
Right.
So you've had 21 years of being
21 years of sheer bliss.
of being very, very famous.
And those years when I drank, I don't remember.
You don't.
When I was the Jack Daniels poster child. But,
You want to talk about those years?
Oh, no. I gave up drinking so I wouldn't be with a baby going, here's the little switch, Daddy's going to throw up on you. Daddy doesn't need the sound of that!
So now you know that you're famous.
I know. Well,
You
sometimes
know
I do. Yeah.
that it's not a linear kind of experience. You know that.
No, it's more elliptical, really, Oprah. Fame is a bit like open heart surgery with a spoon, really. It takes time. There's enjoyable moments, and there's other moments where you go, oh, no. Like, people will come up to you still and go, the guy will come up to you. It's great to be in Chicago and New York. Somebody goes, are you that guy from television? Yeah, you suck. Nice to meet you, thanks. You keep me regular.
That doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, people
I'm
always
sure
tell
people
you,
come to you and say, be funny, or...
yeah, be funny. Then they tell you some amazing, some joke that even that's really rough, and they go, you can use that. I'm like, no thanks. The one about me and my grandma. No, I don't want to. It's
No.
But, most of the time people say be funny, which is, they don't go up to a plumber and go, hey, fix this.
Well, they go to parties and talk to doctors about their ailments and stuff like
Really?
that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do guys actually go up to a doctor and go, what do you think?
Happy birthday, man.
I really don't want my children to pay for my sins.
Or to be afraid for you.
Or to be afraid for me, which is one of the hard parts of being the child of an alcoholic. Do you think, what if my dad gets drunk? What if he does something stupid? What if he ends up on TMZ? And it's on my news feed, and other kids see
Did
it.
you watch the TMZ? Did you watch the?
I didn't. I
the
didn't.
slip?
I saw a little bit. I saw a little bit of it. So yes, I guess I did watch some of it, although not the whole thing. I know what it looks like to be drunk. I don't need to watch any more of it.
Because I heard a thing from a neurologist the other day. I was on a podcast. I'm not hanging out with neurologists, right? And they goes that when you engage your rational mind, it takes you out of your emotion. It's very curious that if the step 10 thing in this program is if something's bothering you, say like if Jay, when we're outside, went, Russell, you look terribly overweight, which Jay would never say because he's too enlightened, as I've already mentioned. And I'm like, instead of thinking about that and worrying about it, I'd go, Jay, because he said that thing about me being overweight, this affects my pride, it affects my self-esteem, it affects my personal relations. That's not the script I'd give Jay. I want Jay to say other stuff. Does it affect my sexual relations? No, Jay and I are both married, and as far as I know, we're both heterosexual. We've not examined that. And then my ambitions, my ambition to be like in control of my own life. There's a whole system. Now, when you go into the fourth column, and you should check this stuff out on my website, russellbrand.com, you can see it. Who's that lovely guy? Like, it asks you various questions. Did I make any mistakes? Yeah, I care too much about what other people think of me. What are your fears? My fears are that if other people don't love me, I'm not good enough. Now, it puts you in a rational part of your mind, and it also starts to help you to understand what patterns are at play when you feel bad about yourself. What are the patterns? Why is it so... If people let me down, I'm really strongly affected by it because it reaches back into my past of times when I was let down when I was small and fragile, I guess. And I think everybody's got their own version of that. This helps you to unpick the tapestry of your broken consciousness and restore to you a screen of pure mind through which a new radiant light can emerge and self-realization can take place.
Do you think the reason why people come up to you is because of what we talked about earlier about how open you are? Like they feel like they know you? That's my homie JJ.
Well, I think,
you know what I'm saying?
it's just because essentially people know me more than I know myself.
Yeah.
Like I've been online for 10 plus years and I've been doing YouTube the whole time and they've just seen my growth. So yeah, it's like that. It's like like we're friends and it's like I've never met the person. They come up to me like, yo, what's up, Jay? How you doing? And it's crazy. Like people who are like my friends or who are with me think, oh, you know him or her. And I'm like, I've never met him or her in my life.
Do you have to pretend like you do sometimes?
Well, No, I kind of just go, I don't know you, but like, what's up? But then, obviously, if they ask for a photo, I take a photo. But like, I take a photo if I'm not doing anything. If I'm doing something, I go, oh, I'm sorry, man, I'm kind of busy right now. Some people don't understand that, and it can be really annoying and frustrating. Some people understand that are really cool, but like, some people are just there like, no, bro, it's just a photo. It'll take 2 seconds. And I'm like, no, it isn't just 2 seconds because if I take a photo with you, then I have to take a photo with the next person and the next person and the next person.
When people tell you, last one, you know what I say? I go, okay, you're gonna tell everyone else that yours was the last one.
Yeah.
After we take this one, all right? but you gotta try. You gotta try.
I think the idea that people think that they know you, I think because of the how intrusive media is these days, people care so much more about your personal life than they do your work. And if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you.
It does feel strange on a daily basis, but at the end of the day, anyone that doesn't want to continue doing what they're doing and realizes that there's a bit of a sacrifice to being able to fulfill your dreams should go do something else. That's my attitude.
When people say like, oh, well, when you get into this business, you have to know, like, that's the price you pay. And I disagree with that entirely. It's your job and it's what you do when you show up on set. It's what we're doing right now. And then after that, I'm not a jerk if I want to like have dinner with my family and I don't want to, engage.
And then I got to make some real choices, man. Is that what I want for myself? Did I get too big? Because I like people, I like entertaining, and the higher up I go, for some reason, the less happy I am.
What did you find in Africa that was an antidote to that?
In Africa? Well, a lot of things. First of all, I'm a Muslim. I don't necessarily practice the way a good Muslim is supposed to practice, but I believe in these tenets. And in Africa, there's a small community of people that don't know anything about the work I do, and they just treat me like I'm a regular dude.
So I knew that in Africa I'd have a place to sleep and that I wouldn't have to feel strange. And, you know, when they would call me crackhead and all these things in the country where I'm from, in Africa, they didn't know anything. They was feeding me and taking care of me and taking me to the mall and just regular stuff. And it just made me feel good. It just reminded me that I was a person, you know. I didn't even know they were saying those things about me. Then I called home and people be like, oh my God, are you all right? Yeah, chill, I'm in Africa, baby, what's going on? And then I got a call from a journalist that had been working on a story, and he was like, yeah, rumor mill's going on about you. Just want to clear a few things up. And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? Okay, do you smoke crack? I said, what? Do you smoke crack? Did you graduate from high school? I mean, it was all these crazy questions. And I thought about never coming back. I said, this place is crazy. Like, I'm that dude. I just thought about all the things that celebrities go through and what celebrities become in our culture. You know, if you Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston and your marriage is breaking up, that's an awful thing. But to see that speculation in people gotta sting a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh my God, I'm one of those people. That's a small club, man. That's a weird place to be. Ain't really no going back. You can't get unfamous. You can get infamous. Right. But you can't get unfamous.
Right.
I suppose you were saying about earlier on about how vitriolic people are when you complain about it or when you talk about it. I suppose the argument is that you make a lot of money and it's the price you pay.
I know. Well, literally, it's like, I think it's just internet people anyway. I'm also not entirely sure if the people who have comments on the internet, if they actually are real people. It's just like a machine that makes them. So I don't know anyone who's ever done a comment on anything on the internet.
But do you avoid reading it now?
Oh, no, it's impossible not to. I mean, literally, if someone's whispering about you in the next room, you're going to listen to it. But at the same time, I'm not trying to change anyone's opinion particularly, which is what I've realized over the years. It's just like, I don't care. I mean, you care what people are saying, but really, you don't want, after someone said that, you don't actually want them to like you anyway. You just want to judge them back.
I mean, the world that I understood and the world that I came up in, and what I wanted to be when I was 14 years old, was I wanted to be an actor, a la, Gene Hackman, Roy Scheider, like guys that made movies, played different characters, did different things, were part of telling stories. And now I feel like there's an entire world of branding and this sort of mesh of celebrity and actor, which is a whole different world than I grew up in. So I have no expertise in it. And I think that, I've often felt like, as narcissistic as I am, I've often felt that my path is the path. And I guess as I go further with these kids, I start to realize that it's not, and that I have to let go of these ideas that I thought make a good career or a good life. And so, I've done my best to try to guide as well as I can, and then to say hands off in terms of this is a new world that is your world, and you have to define it for yourself.
There's this beautiful, beautiful piece in the book which you call "Here is a Postcard from the Other Side." And you've touched on it already, but I had it noted and I wanted to bring it up. So this is Russell. Here is a postcard from the other side. Fame, luxury items, and glamour are not real and cannot solve you. Whether it's a pair of shoes, a stream of orgies, a movie career, or global adulation, they're all just passing clouds of imaginary pleasure.
It's true, although I still got those shoes. It was very well read, that, Jay, and it is true. Justice. No, you did it more than justice. You brought it to life. It was wonderful. But so I suppose, I like that. It's a very common metaphor. The idea of passing clouds. We all recognise that clouds are impermanent and the result of precipitation. And similarly, the vapours of consciousness form into clouds, but they will pass. What we attach to is what's important, particularly if you want to create a sort of a positive ecology in our own consciousness.
Just and what happened to Avicii is terrible, by the way. And I haven't seen the documentary. I didn't watch it. I actually knew someone who worked with him. He wrote with me as well. And he said that what he saw was going on was not good. But for the most part, for a lot of these people, there's usually somebody in there that's not very good. But everyone else is trying to help. And you don't see the effect it's having on them as well. You live and die by the sword. I live and die by my sword. That's it. But the person who's behind trying to pick up the shield to help me, they haven't even got the fucking sword. They're just diving into battle for you. And that's the difference. You know what I mean? It's like people miss out on that bit. So it's never just on that person. You know what I mean? A lot of my stuff, you know, if I hadn't had the help I had, I don't know where the hell I'd be right now. So that's a credit to you in a sense.
It's super tough. I think with the bit that I really respect you for, though, is you're very open about it. You talk about it. You talk about going to therapy. You talk about your lows. You talk about being unsure if you would even be here. And that's going to do a lot of good for a lot of people.
I hope so. I mean,
you know what I mean?
The worst bit for me is, I think it's seen so much as a tool these days to hide behind at points. And for me, it's never about that situation. Like, I'm just telling you as what it is. And that's the bit where I think, like I say, I don't want any of this to get lost in translation. I am not 1% moaning about my life. I love my life at the minute. My life's great. It's had its ups, had its downs, but it's, you know, yeah, I think I'd rather talk about it, and it's therapeutic for me.
Fame is different than what people think. Being famous is like living in a big, pretty prison. It really is. You can't do anything, you know. I haven't been to the movies. The last movie I've been to, I saw the Kings of Comedy, the premiere of the Kings of Comedy. That was in 2000. That was the last one. I can't go to a movie. I can't go to the mall with my kids. I can't go to food court. You know, I go to dinner with my wife. I know where to go. I got special tables I can get. But that's really it. You know, I can't go to the park. Haven't been to an amusement park. A lot of stuff you can't go do. I can't go to the park. You know, I can't take my grandkids or kids and go to the park because all I'm gonna do is take pictures. And my kids hate that. Dad, can you just pay attention to us? Okay, well, shit, y'all like eating, don't you? That's why you get money, you gotta buy all that stuff. Your house gotta be big. Man, why you got the big ass house? Because shit, I can't go nowhere. Shit, if I'm gonna walk around, I can't walk around 800 square feet. I walk in the door and cut the TV on me and go to the bathroom and go to bed. That's it. Shit, I gotta go upstairs, downstairs. You gotta turn corners. That's what you do. And so you end up spending a big part of your money trying to create a life for yourself. You know, whatever you like to do, you gotta have in your backyard. You know, I like to play golf. So I got sand trap in my yard. You know, I practice my putting and stuff. I smoke my cigars, you know. You put that at your house or else, you know. I'm not complaining, it's the way it is.
He's one of the most exciting new names in stand-up comedy.
This was a sort of a pivotal kind of TV appearance experience. This was in 2006. The reason I remember that is because West Ham got to the FA Cup final and I was like following West Ham a lot that season. And people at West Ham, where I'd gone my whole life, suddenly recognised me. Suddenly a place that was about crowds and anonymity and about the team, the crowd turned around. It's exhilarating and exciting and terrifying. The first time that you're chased around by paparazzi, the first time you hear camera lenses on a car window, it's sort of like, oh my God, that thing when I was a little kid that I wanted to happen. Look, it's actually happening. It's somehow actually happening. But there's something about it that is deeply unhealthy, that you intuit from the very beginning. Uh-oh, this ain't good. And you fracture. There is a fracture occurs, like part of you, like you split. You know, you see it in a TV show sometimes when like a sort of a light body steps out of someone and looks back, like a phantom version of the self. And that thing goes off to live in the world of fame. You know, an object held in the culture where people talk about you and discuss you and say things about you. And you think, well, that's not even who I am. That's not what happened. That's not what I meant. That's not what I did. It's a contraption, a construction that's nothing to do with you. What I feel is that at this moment, I found, oh, wow, I can do this thing.
A lot of people think getting famous will save you, that it will grant you the life you feel you're owed and spare you certain indignities. I was pretty bummed to realize that rather than lessening or eliminating my insecurities and least attractive qualities, it basically poured fertilizer on them. The upside was that I could really see them, how competitive I was, how much I compared myself to others, how vain, anxious, and self-conscious I could be in my least attractive moments. The list goes on. And I saw that if I wanted to live with myself, I was going to have to work on myself. At some point, I realized that all of this was providing me with an intense and fruitful spiritual practice. Fame could be a terrific teacher if I agreed to the lesson plan. Now, part of that lesson plan involved getting used to a different degree of attention. There's this idea about actors that we love and crave the spotlight and welcome any chance to be in it. This is generally false. I want what I do to be seen and appreciated, but I can also be intensely shy and slightly monastic. Partly this is born of a lifelong allergy to humiliation. Now, any garden variety insecurity or self-consciousness I might have felt before I was on television was suddenly multiplied 100-fold. As the writer David Foster Wallace once said, nothing stimulates your what will I look like gland more than being on television. Now that I was on television every week and that gland was in overdrive, I really had to look at this in earnest. So I came to see that it was pride that was holding me hostage. Pride is a word we've turned into a virtue, but throughout much of human history, it's been considered to be a vice. The capital defect, in fact, the one from which all the others spring. And it expresses itself in my life in a number of ways. First off, I want everyone to love and praise everything I think and say and do, and I feel there must have been some great cosmic error when they don't. The flip side is, I can also feel like a world-class fraud who can't believe anyone lets me on primetime television or invites me to speak at fancy conferences in India. It really just depends upon the day. So there's a great spiritual master who gave some practical, if startling, advice regarding dealing with pride. He advised his students to find a way to get insulted every day. Now, he took this quite seriously. There's a wonderful story about this master that apparently he had an enemy in the town in which he lived. This man hated the master and never missed an opportunity to gossip and spread reputation-destroying lies about him. The master knew of this man and what he was saying, and he was shaken by it. So what did he do? Once a week, he would go to this man's house. He would knock on the door. The man would open the door, see the master standing there, and he would scream at him, call him names, say what a horrible fraud of a person and teacher he thought he was, on and on. The master would stand there for as long as the man had the energy to scream at him, and he always said nothing. He didn't object or defend himself. He remained completely silent. One day, after years of doing this, it came time for the master to go to the man's house, and he didn't go. His students noticed and said, Master, it's 4 o'clock. Aren't you supposed to be at so-and-so's house getting screamed at? And he said, no, I don't need to go anymore. They said, why not? And he said, I was there last week, and as he screamed at me, I felt nothing. Now, I didn't have to put myself through such an arduous exercise in exposure therapy because fortunately, there's the internet where you can get insulted for free on a very regular basis. The internet, I've come to realize, is the perfectly designed pride reduction technology. When my show first went on the air, I thought I would go on the old www and check out what people thought. What could be the harm, right? And so I'm reading messages on some comment thread or another, and there were some very nice things about the show and about me, and you can probably guess where this is headed. It started to get meaner and meaner until I arrived at this one, which quickly embedded itself in my cranium and has to this day never left. It said, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it is I don't like about this guy, and I think I finally figured it out. His face. Nice, right? Now, there is, of course, an easy solution to all of this. Don't read it. And that was my policy for years and basically still is. But there's also a usefulness in letting it toughen you up, in draining it of its power to chip away at your sense of self. The master didn't bury his head in the sand and wish his enemy went away. He stood there and he listened to him until it didn't affect him anymore. I'm never going to succeed at silencing my critics, but I can get a different relationship to criticism, one where I'm not rattled so easily. On the other side of that has been a new kind of freedom. As Winston Churchill said, nothing in life is so exhilarating as to be shot at without result. Now, if you're visible in any way, you can be assured that people you've never met are going to come out of the woodwork and tell you you suck. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. In today's world, if people are drawn to say negative things to you and about you online, it's actually a weird sign of success. People are paying attention. And it's my belief that that attention confers upon us a certain level of responsibility. You become a kind of ambassador. But for what? Now, many celebrities just want to sing or act or do whatever it is they do and be left alone. That's entirely reasonable. But at the very least, I think one should consider adopting the physician's credo. First, do no harm.
So what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about fame?
I don't know. I don't think they view it as real life. It's like just always perfect or something like, fame is placed very high on the list of things that are important to especially, the whole world, but especially in the States, like it's really above like wealth, like it's above happiness. It's just fame. Pop up. Are you looking at me? Are you looking at me? Are you looking at me? Like it's a constant. It doesn't feel good all the time. In case people think that that's like, trust me, you need a lot more.
I don't know what's happened recently though. I can just let everything just slide off me now. But when I was younger, I just kind of, when people used to wait outside your house and stuff, it's like, it would drive you really, really, really crazy.
I have been, subject to analysis from the media that I thought was neither fair nor accurate. I've been, exposed to the way that it can become kind of a hysteria and the way in which, a person becomes a commodity.
Biggest misconception I see often is people feeling like they know someone that they don't because they know what the media has created of someone. And the disappointing thing is when you meet the people, they're always so much more awesome than they're portrayed to be. That's normally my experience. And even people that are portrayed to be really great people, they're just a lot more complicated and interesting and nuanced and caring and thoughtful. And that's always nice, to see that your idea of someone isn't always who they actually are.
If you're, Leo or Bieber or any of those young, this is what you part of coming of age.
Yes.
Figuring out what you want in life. And, when you do that, you're going to do weird shit, good shit, bad shit.
Well, that's, whenever everybody if anybody would try to judge someone like that, like Bieber in particular, right? Because he was really, really young when he got famous. It's insane.
Yeah. And that whole thing, that theory that at however old you are when you get famous, that freezes you in carbonite emotionally and intellectually.
Well, that makes sense with child stars, right?
Anybody. Yes,
Sure.
But anyway, it's also that thing of have you ever noticed that before you get famous, the people who were famous to you then, fast forward 100 years or whatever, and maybe they haven't done as much and you have, but when you meet them, you think they're the most famous, crazy, successful person. It's the same.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same type of thing. If I were to meet, Dr. Smith from Lost in Space, I'd be like, no fucking way, doctors.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So it's funny how time.
I met Lee Majors. I was in
That's
my
what
glory.
I'm saying.
I was like, it's a $6 million man. I can't believe it. He's real.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheech and Chong, when I met those guys, I was like, I can't believe they're real.
Yeah.
Can't believe I'm meeting them. Yeah.
You get frozen in your own perspective.
Well, when you get older and you become famous, very few people can have this conversation, right? But when you get famous and you meet famous people, to me it's still weird. Like when I met you today, I was like, oh, hello, Rob Lowe. I've seen you in movies, but I'm more normal with it than when I was young. When I was young and I would meet, I remember the first time I was on the set of News Radio and I met Phil Hartman. Oh. I was so weirded out. And I was like, he's right there. This is great. Because I hadn't met a lot of famous people back then.
But, everyone's got kind of lame aspects of their life. I realized over the last few years, because if you complain about something, the vitriol which you get back from it when they're like, how dare you complain about something? I think what people don't get is I think actors will say something in an interview when they're just basically bitching and moaning about in the same way you bitch and moan about any job.
I often say this, and I've interviewed, lots of people, and I often say that I feel really badly for kids, particularly young kids now. I actually said this to Justin Bieber when he turned 18. I interviewed him when he turned 18. And I said, I don't know how you're going to be able to figure out who you are. Because if you're 12 years old and you get discovered on YouTube, you think that is your life.
Right.
And it takes a long time, hardships, difficulties, struggles and stuff to figure out who you are. And it's really hard. That's why I feel for him and others like him who've grown up in the public, because you all your mistakes are on the news.
Right. Especially now.
Especially now.
back when I started, you didn't have
social media, so
You
you
didn't have
could
social
afford to
media.
make a couple of mistakes.
You just had the tabloids.
Yeah,
Trying to
right. Which
exploit
we
everything.
thought were
We thought-
awful at the time.
Yes.
But boy, compared.
Now it's 100-fold. With any mistake that you make is glorified, and you have the haters and the trolls and all that stuff. So it's very hard to figure out who you are in the spotlight of everybody else telling you who you are. And this is what I do know for sure. If you come to this world of fame, or you suddenly make the lottery and you get a lot of cousins, you get money.
I had a grandma once, really.
Yeah.
A woman told me she was my grandmother. I
Really?
said, no, you're not. I said, I had 2 grandmas, you ain't either one of them.
No, and cousins come from everywhere. Oh my gosh. So when that starts happening to you and everybody's telling you based on their idea of who you are, it's hard for you to figure it out. Because
Right.
look at your path to figuring out who you are. All the mistakes you made in high school, in college, and the boyfriends and girlfriends you made mistakes with. Imagine if every time you made a mistake, it's amplified all over.
I would say it's a very tricky thing to navigate for anyone. I mean, I was lucky it didn't happen to me till I was 40, and so I had a true experience of life and being able to go to the grocery store and make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I mean, things like that, you know, so developmentally to have that amount of attention and that amount of need, like people really do need something from you. And that, I think it's, you know, somewhat unfair to do to a child. Not that it's anyone's fault. I mean, it's like these are great performances. But I even said early on to the press when we were kind of in the zeitgeist of awards and stuff, I was like, I wish you guys could just let them be brilliant and like leave them alone and not pay any attention to them and not even give them any compliments so that they can grow and learn and fail and risk and do all these things that I was allowed to do. Because I think fame is, you know, in certain ways a prison, because you do become a brand and you become something where you know, people want something from you, and if you can't deliver, if you risk and you fail, then it's detrimental to your, you know, brand. And I would hate to, I hate to feel that way at 45, but I would really hate to feel that way at like, you know, 13.
You know, as a Beatle, we made it, and there was nothing to do. We had money, we had fame, and there was no joy, you know. And then I met Yoko, and she was making it as an avant-garde artist, and we both tried to find something we had in common, a common goal in life, because she couldn't rock and roll with me, and I couldn't avant-garde with her. I mean, we can, but that's what we thought at the time. So we decided the thing we had in common was love, and from love came peace. So we decided to work for world peace.
And how do you do that?
We do it by the advertising method. We believe that today's society, advertising is the thing politicians use and commercial companies use. The Beatles use it. John and Yoko should use it. Our product is peace. Of less words and more peace. I think the only way to do it is Gandhi's way. And that's non-violent, passive, positive, or whatever they called it those days. You know? We're selling it like soap, you know. And you've got to sell and sell until the housewife thinks, oh, well, there's peace or war. That's the two products. Peace.
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 Peace,
peace, peace, peace, peace, peace, peace, peace, peace, peace, peace, peace, peace.
Peace in your mind, peace on earth, peace at work, peace at home, peace in the world. It's to try and get people orientated to think peace, like eat for peace, breathe for peace, and dance for peace, and make love for peace, you know. To just have the peace like a mantra going round and round in your head. War is a game that's gone too far, you know. It's just like we've all just woken up one morning and thought, is it a dream? Is it a nightmare? What's been going on? And we're all just trying to make the next day a bit better.
That fame, which for you was at an extraordinary level, I mean, it's fair to say you're quite popular with the young ladies. I mean, has that been a sort of blessing or a burden, would you say?
I mean, to be honest, I don't even really know. I mean, you kind of, there are definitely some kind of fun aspects of it. But yeah, I mean, it's a kind of mixture. I mean, I'm not sure what it's done really professionally. I mean, because I mean, I guess I was working before. I mean, you just sort of audition for stuff. I mean, I'm not entirely sure if it's even easier to get jobs. I mean, you still have to audition for that, for this. I'm still auditioning for it.
I suppose you are in a position to call up if you fancy doing something now, which presumably you weren't at the beginning.
I mean, not really, because the people you really want to work with wouldn't want to do it for that reason anyway. I mean, I guess you can get financing for, you know, if I wanted to do a movie which looked almost identical to Twilight, I'd probably get financing for it from someone. But the people I want to work with still, you know, I haven't proved myself in too many different environments. So I would want people to want to audition me. So I guess it hasn't really changed that much, really.
That within itself is bizarre. That we as a society think, or I'm not saying we do, but that has become a thing. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to me that that is the thing. Being known at any cost, who cares? That can't be good for us. And plus, there's no culture in celebrity culture. Zero. Those TMZ shows, that horseshit People magazine, it's crap. There's no art in it. It's all terrible. I mean, I see people read People magazine, it's like, you're gonna read a magazine where someone's hiding in the bushes to take a picture of someone's children? You're gonna endorse that?
And today everyone else can take pictures of...
And it's completely legal. The internet's the Wild West. Yeah. Who knows what's gonna happen?
It was an interesting thing. Writing the book was pretty easy. Writing the book, it was like cleansing. It was like a wonderful experience. I just wrote all these terrible things. I got them down on the page, and but reading it was almost impossible. It was like I disassociated a little bit, and I looked at this book, which I had to read because I had to do the audio the next day. But I looked at the book, and I was just like, this guy has had like the most torturous life. I can't believe it. And then I realized it was me that I was talking about. And, you know, it was, I literally had to sleep in a different room. I was working on a laptop, and I moved the laptop into my living room so I could sleep that night because it was so powerfully dark. And for so long, I didn't know what was going on. I do now. And that's why the best thing about me is I can help people if they ask me to. Wonderful things have happened in my life. I'm incredibly grateful for all of them, but that's the ticket for me, is helping people on a large scale or helping, you know, one guy and seeing the light turn on and him understanding what is happening.
Twin motivations that I had, an earnest and sincere desire to create things, in my case to make people laugh, to connect with people, along with this rather unstable requirement for attention and approval. The thing is that the latter can never be dealt with in this space. When you arrive there at that point on the path that you projected yourself towards, you find that there's nothing there. So if you are driven by an honest intention to convey sort of a message or to share a gift, that at least will sustain you. But the neurotic part of the drive, of course, can never be fulfilled.
I think that you live a life that's like a fairy tale. But I bet in reality, even though it looks gorgeous, you probably have down days just as well as everybody. How do you deal with them?
Is there a misconception of the fact that when we become famous that we have these beautiful, perfect lives and that nothing is ever on a low? It's a bad conception, because then people always think that you have to be this grand old person that's just happy about life and everything because what, we got money? Well, money doesn't make you happy. It never did. I mean, history will tell you that. And fame certainly doesn't make you happy, you know. People will tell you that who are famous.
I'm being honest with myself, Mom. I'm smart, I work hard, and I'm a good person. Ma, if I allowed myself to think like you, I guess I'd be a dead woman.
You gotta find the happiness in yourself. You gotta know who you are before you step into this business. Because if you're trying to find it, you'll probably wind up being somebody else that you probably don't even like. I like me. I like me.
I see a beautiful woman with a good heart. Only has to open her eyes to realize that everything she ever wanted, she already has.
Oh, yes, I do. I believe in you and me.
Yeah, look, I'm just a regular guy. I mean, hopefully, because I'm a regular guy, and I've overcome quite a bit in my life. So, I mean, if that could be an inspiration to people, or the fact that I was able to turn my life around as an inspiration, then that's fantastic. It doesn't really, I don't know, it certainly doesn't get to my head. I don't feel like, oh yes, I should be let me touch you and make you feel better.
It's like, I think people do assume that it's all just like diamonds and laying around and like money, and it's like it's not
caviar
like that.
swimming pools,
Yeah.
which I just got out of.
Mine's filled with tuna.
I think the important thing is just to take it one step at a time. I think if you rush into fame, then that's where it can be really affecting. And if you take it for granted, it can be really affecting. But I love this job and I love working so much that I think I'll continue to work and won't sort of acknowledge the fame side of things really, and just enjoy the work. And
you were called the most famous 12-year-old in the world when the Harry Potter films took off. After Chris Columbus saw you and David Copperfield, they cast you in the first movie. Did you have any sense at that age of what was happening around you, that Harry Potter had taken off and that you were this famous and that people were reading the books and watching the movies and obsessing over it?
I mean, I knew that was happening, but the difference between sort of understanding the words people say when they say this is a global phenomenon and actually feeling that is huge, particularly as a kid, which I think in a way is great. Like, you wouldn't want a kid to feel the sort of the weight and the sense of expectation of all of that. And I never did. I mean, also I think we were actually amazingly sheltered from how the world was receiving the films and how big they were getting by making the films, because as I said, they took like 10 or 11 months. So like, I was going, most days of my life I was spent going to the studios in Leavesden, and you didn't really see the world outside of that. I've become so much more aware of the Potter fandom and things since finishing the films and sort of the 10 years since than I was when we were actually on it.
I think the faith that people put in Hollywood and all that, I think it's all bullshit. I think it's just gross. I mean, Hollywood's a weird town anyway. It brags about itself constantly. All it does is talk about how much money it makes. And it's a weird, I don't know, I don't agree with it. It's just the morals of Hollywood to me I don't get it. I like to be in it and act in it, but the way it acts as a unit, you read those trade magazines, it's just like gross. It's everybody bragging about each other.
I had no idea at the time that what I'd done was constructed a persona or identity for myself. It wasn't really a conscious decision to make. I remember looking at sort of rock bands from the 70s and 80s and Noel Fielding, who I've always adored and still adore, and like thinking, I've got to look different. I can't look like, sort of probably just a couple of years before that, I was hanging out with sort of like quite cool people in Camden, notably Winehouse. I don't consciously remember borrowing her haircut, and God rest her soul. I built a persona for myself, a very identifiable figure. I remember thinking that I wanted to be recognisable in silhouettes. I'd heard Matt Groening say about cartoon characters and like putting on the eye makeup and stuff and turning myself into a thing. And when I look at this person that I created, in a sense, I'm quite glad that I did it, because it means now that I don't do those things, now that I don't live in that world, now that I'm a father, a husband, and that my priorities in life are entirely different. Now that I'm no longer suspended in that stimulating state of fame, now that I have come to earth, I recognise, oh my God, there is peace here. I have learned, I have been shown that we in life tend to focus on the stimulant, the external thing, the person that annoys you or insults you, the person that is attractive to you, that appeals to you. But what we should be focusing on is the stimulation. What is happening to us? What is happening in the body? It's making me feel frightened. It's making me feel sad. It's making me feel angry. If you bring your attention to the internal rather than the external, to the feeling rather than the thoughts, you will receive the messages that some essential aspect of yourself, whether you believe in a scientific materialist perspective and it's your biology, or a spiritual perspective and it's your consciousness more broadly, you can receive the message that you are being sent if you're not distracted by the rambling pirouettes of the ego. What is fame really than millions of people who you don't know having an opinion on you. What is it really other than an amplification of what all of us experience? Fear about what other people might be thinking about us, gossip, what people are saying. It's really just sort of the social experience on steroids. But here and there within it, you find genuine experiences. Like, it is amazing to be in a film with Helen Mirren or Alec Baldwin or Jonah Hill. Like, you encounter brilliant people. In a sense, I'm in no position to judge the machinery of celebrity. What I am in a position to judge is the way that the machinery of celebrity reacts with me. And it was kind of almost like an allergy. Like, I felt myself suspended in this state, like those blue balls in the Science Museum, not literal blue balls, those glass spheres that have blue electricity in them, you know, and you put your hand on it and it follows you around. I felt like I was suspended in a state like that, and it was such an obvious echo of addiction, like being held up by opiates or being held up by libidinousness. It's not something that you can sustain.
One of the annoying things about that is, like, you can't really live in London because people stay outside your door. There aren't really gated communities in London, which has made my life like profoundly different in LA. Like, when I had people waiting outside my house, I was losing my mind. And now it's kind of...
What is that feeling like at that moment? You're sitting in your own home.
Yeah, you're in prison, and it's kind of it's great because it's like, you know, you have like 5 cars of people outside your house, and they're literally 24 hours a day. It's crazy, and you're so helpless to it as well. And I think also just being like a guy, like, it's just so emasculating. Like, the fact that, like, there's a bunch of guys who can look at you and say and do whatever they want to, and you can't do anything. And like, all you want to do is punch them in the face, and that's what they want.
In what sense? That you mean guys goad you?
Oh yeah, 100%. And like, I mean, that's literally the only thing they want. And it's stalkers with cameras, and you know, they're saying, "Oh, I'm not a stalker, I'm a paparazzi." It's like, oh, that makes a massive difference. Yeah, but you know, you kind of figure out ways to deal with it, and then like, I don't go out anywhere where I can get photographed anymore.
The strangest and most disorienting of those changes was that suddenly a lot of people knew me. Well, they didn't know me, they knew my face. They knew this character that I was playing. By some strange coincidence, the character and I looked a lot alike. So suddenly, I had this new, weird, vertigo-inducing dimension to my reality. People had been spending a lot of time with me, and I was unaware of having spent time with them. Now, as the show continued to grow in popularity, I realized that if I wasn't careful, if I didn't cultivate a strong group of friends I could trust and a life philosophy that I could lean upon, I was going to get into some trouble. So I had to ask myself, given that this public thing was, at least now for the time being, a feature and fact of my life, what kind of public person did I want to be? Now, an answer didn't announce itself immediately. I was clear, though, given the menu of options, about what I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be an alcoholic or a drug addict. I didn't want to be an impossible to be around narcissist. And I didn't want to be a reclusive weirdo who refuses to cut his fingernails or leave the house. Okay, well, what then? How was I to live and grow in the public eye if I had no other choice? Now, one of my favorite things about being on a television show with a global reach is that it's made the world feel smaller in a really nice way. I like meeting new people, and I've had the opportunity to meet fans of the show in India, Singapore, Mallorca, Tanzania, Italy, Peru, and Texas, just to name a few. I've also connected with some people in some really tough situations, people going through divorce, health crises, losing loved ones, soldiers stationed overseas, who told me that How I Met Your Mother was a huge source of light and laughter in some incredibly dark times. To be a part of something that can offer that, well, I don't take that for granted. But still, like with all things, it has not been without its challenges. When How I Met Your Mother first went on the air, I ran into an actress that I knew, and she said, "Are you just like so happy all the time?" And I remember thinking, does she really think that when CBS picked up the show, it left me with an inability to feel anything other than unbridled joy? But the joke was on me because I kind of thought it would. I had bought into the not uncommon notion that when I taste success, when I get over there, then I'll be happy. But the strangest thing happened. As the show got more successful, I got more depressed. And I kind of had to keep that to myself. The circle of people to whom you can complain about being on a hit television show is unsurprisingly small.
In LA, here being famous doesn't seem like a viable option. In LA, it seemed like the most viable option, like the most primary option.
Oh, you mean like there's a
community of people that are focused around the Kardashians
Right.
and the athletes and the musicians and the this and the that, and their whole ideas. This obviously sounds hypocritical. It's coming from someone who happens to be famous, but I think that it's a empty pursuit. It's you can get famous doing a thing that you love, or you can try to be famous, and they're two very different things. And I think there's been many times in my life where I was trying to get famous because it seemed like it was impossible. Right, like when I was young and first getting on television, first doing comedy, because it just seemed like impossible. Like, how does someone get famous? How does it? I could see other people famous. Like, how are they famous? This is crazy. It seemed nuts.
Yeah.
But be careful what you wish for.
You think fame changed you? Like, are you able to, like, be cognizant of ways in which the fact that this podcast is the biggest podcast in the world and just all of that, how that's changing your mind? I mean, I think about that with power, that you might not be cognizant of the way that power is changing you. That's why I find Putin fascinating.
So what?
Like, do you look in the mirror and see, like, you're not the man you used to be in some dimension? Like, this is a different human because you're so fucking famous.
Believe it or not, I think about that very little. And I think that's one of the keys to my success.
I think so. I see that.
Legitimately.
I think just interacting with you offline in general, I don't think it doesn't look like you acknowledge to yourself that you're famous. Like, you're not living with that truth. You're not, like, lingering it. You're still pursuing the things that make you happy. I tend to believe that you can do the same with power. Like, I tend to believe a president could do that same kind of thing.
That's what we would hope, right? You would hope that some president gets to a position of power not because they crave it, but because they have solutions to problems and they genuinely think that they can help the world. Not saying that I'm not equating I'm not favorably comparing myself to a president or something like that, but I think I got a slow drip of fame, and that's one of the things that helped me. I got on television for the first time in like the early 90s with doing stand-up comedy, and then it led to a sitcom, then it led to Fear Factor and the UFC and all these different things, and then ultimately it accidentally led to the biggest thing that I ever did, which was this.
Is this the biggest thing you ever did? This podcast?
Oh, by far. Yeah, by magnitudes, massive, giant numbers of magnitudes different than anything I've ever done.
Do you like the attention, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, and I do appreciate it when I get recognized now because it's so rare, and it's lovely to be recognized by people because they've obviously seen your work and they've appreciated it and they want to say hello, and it's really lovely. I can see though, if you're like Justin Bieber and you can't go anywhere, it would be quite tough and cumbersome, really. But
especially with all the selfies that people want these days.
I know, and now the thing is, with everyone with a cell phone, the press are everywhere. You can't really go anywhere without being watched. So it's just about being careful. Don't do anything silly. And I'm quite sensible. And I'm
you seem very sensible.
Well, yeah.
I read an article about somebody famous, and he was in trouble for doing something. And I said to myself, I was all alone. I said to myself, what does he care? He's famous. He doesn't care about this little thing. He's famous. The answer to everything is being famous. And then for the first time in my life, I knelt down and prayed. And that prayer was, please, God, make me famous. You can do anything you want to me. Just make me famous. 3 weeks later, I got friends, and God did not forget about the second part.
But what sticks out to me about that is just that there's a couple of moments in the book where you go, I really thought that being famous, I thought that having the #1 TV show, I had everything I'd always wanted, and it wasn't Matthew, it wasn't able to fill the holes. I think that was a powerful realization for you.
Yeah, I mean, I had the American dream happen to me. I got the great job. I was good at it. I bought a house. The house had a pool. I had the American dream, and I really, really liked it. Loved it for about 6 months, and then I walked in my house and went, "Oh man, this is not fixing this problem that I have. How is that possible?" And I wanted to finish the Craig Bierko story because it was really pivotal and it was important. So Craig Bierko, after he didn't get Friends, and Friends was on for 2 years and was a massive hit, Craig didn't speak to me for those 2 years. I would call him, he wouldn't return my calls, and he just didn't want to be my friend anymore. So 2 years into it, he called me up on the phone and said, "Can we meet? I'd like to talk with you." I said, "Of course, yes, great." So he came over to my apartment and he said, "I'm sorry that I have not called you in 2 years. I could not handle that you got rich and famous on a show that I turned down. We were both good enough to get that role." And I said, "Of course we were. But let me tell you something, pal. It doesn't do what we all thought it would do." And we were 24 years old having that conversation. And he didn't believe me, nor would anybody believe me. But it was true. That's why I said to him, I wanted to help him out. I wanted to say, it doesn't solve the problem. Jim Carrey did a really good quote a couple of years ago, a few years ago, and he said, "I want everybody to get all their dreams come true, everybody, so that they could know that it's not the answer." And it's hard to, that's one of the main reasons I bought that. I didn't buy it, I wrote it.
I bought it.
You bought it.
I bought it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. One of the main reasons I wrote the book was I wanted people to, understand that. And not many books have come from the side of the addict and, told the story from that side before. Certainly not somebody who's been on one of their favorite shows or whatever. And, that message is very powerful because I thought it would fix everything, and, it didn't. I still wanted to drink every day.
I was always getting in them kind of fracas. It's too much. Like when you live in Los Angeles and you're a famous person, it's all the time. It's like a grind. There's no downtime. There's no point where you're going to arrive at who you actually are. What are you actually? What is this really? Culture can be a beautiful thing, right? Van Gogh is culture. Religion is culture. But when culture is all about commodity and commodification, you find yourself suspended in this unreal formaldehyde, this unreal, it's intense experience, unrelenting, and very, 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 very challenging. Obviously, what the experience has shown me is treasure and cherish the real, discover what is sacred, accept what happens to you, and learn to see how it can be utilized for good. The things in me that made me want to be famous in the first place, they're sort of still there, a kind of yearning. But now, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the painful education I've received, and I'm grateful to receive, when I find myself directing that yearning towards an external thing, like, oh, perhaps some people would love me, perhaps I could get some approval, perhaps I could get some pleasure, I sort of remember, oh yeah, that doesn't ever work, ever. Turn this energy, this craving, this yearning, this longing, what does the wanting want, to true connection. And the only way to achieve this true connection is by adhering to certain principles, living in accordance with certain laws that are so commonly found, they may as well be referred to as universal: compassion, kindness, service, love, surrender.
Well, you're a very down-to-earth guy, which is very unusual for someone who's as famous as you are. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this, is because it seems like right now you're you. You can be you. You're just, but what it seems like for someone who's as famous as that, who gets on stage and thousands of people just going fucking crazy, and you're up there. I mean, that has got to be intoxicating and confusing. And oftentimes I feel like people are a prisoner to whatever image that either they projected initially or it becomes how the public perceives them because of all their success and because of the fact they go on stage and 100,000 people go fucking ape shit. What is that like, trying to like find yourself while you're also kind of worshipped?
Right. Well, Joe, you hit it. I mean, it's the transitions from road to home are always somewhat difficult. It's like there's a PTSD that goes along with it, you know. You are, like you said, worshipped. You know, there's a lot of, you know, where do I get my validation, really? That's where I have to step back and say, okay, am I who these people say I am or think I am? They have their own vision or version of me, just like I had my own version of Lemmy. You know, this thing that it was strong. And, you know, these people expect me to be a certain way. And when they meet you in normal life, you're sitting with your family eating, or you're friggin' in the supermarket, you know, throwing salad on some guy, people want you to do the thing you do. You know, hey, headbang, jump up on the salad bar and rock out or something. It's like, dude, music does that to me. Playing music with these guys does that to me. But when I'm not doing that, I'm just a dude, you know, and they don't want that. That it hurts them. It scares them. Like, wait a minute. I need you to be this certain way. It makes me feel secure. So when you're not that, I don't want to sign stuff. I don't want to take pictures, selfies with people. I want to shake your hand, and I want to talk with you. I want to, hey, who are you? What do you do? Here's what I do. You know, people think they know me because of the music and all the interviews and all the stuff. I get that, but I don't know you. So when you come up and say, dude, blah, 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 you know, I want to know you because we're at a disadvantage here.
But if you get swamped by people and they all want to take pictures, how do you handle that?
Oh, I got to leave. I mean, there's an anger part of me that I still wrestle with, and things get stupid. And it's like, it's a fight or flight thing, man. It's like, I'm being attacked. Wait a minute, you know.
You just get overwhelmed by all the people.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's like your reality is so detached from that. It's a totally different situation. The only connection which has to reality is when like a story's happening, whatever. There are just more paparazzi around, and so it's higher intensity. But there's no, like, no one knows anything about you really. I mean, it's just, and I've tried really hard to make that. To make that separation between my real life and my kind of public persona.
I got a big lesson in this the second year of my show. I was giving someone a ride home from a party where I'd had a few drinks, and I got pulled over by the police. I was put through the whole battery of sobriety tests, and my heart was beating so fast that I didn't actually do all that well. The officer gave me a breathalyzer test, which I passed barely. The next morning, I realized that had I been arrested, there's a good chance my mugshot would have ended up splashed across myriad gossip websites. I thought about a young kid who was maybe a fan of the show and of mine, and him seeing that and what that would look like to him. It was a reminder that my life was no longer entirely my own, that my missteps would be there for many people to see. First off, it made me take a good hard look at my drinking, which had ticked up considerably since the show went on the air. The rates of drug and alcohol abuse among celebrities are well documented. I didn't want to be another sad statistic. I realized after the incident that I was much more interested in being an example rather than a cautionary tale, that my behavior off-screen was as vital and consequential as my behavior on. In my more awakened moments, I try to remember that everything that comes my way is potentially my teacher. Everything is an opportunity to go against my tired habits and practice something new. When a reporter misquotes or quotes me wildly out of context, I can practice surrender. When a fan behaves strangely around me, I can practice compassion. When a beautiful woman approaches me with a big smile and says, "I've never seen your show, but my boyfriend is a huge fan, and he was too shy to come over and ask, but can he have a picture with you?" I can practice acceptance. When the girlfriend's camera on her phone won't work and I'm standing awkwardly shoulder to shoulder with her grinning boyfriend for what seems like hours, I can practice patience. When I feel overwhelmed with attention or scrutiny, I can practice gratitude. When no one knows who I am or cares what I'm doing, I can practice humility. When people say all manner of offensive things in the guise of a compliment, such as you're much more attractive in person or you're much thinner than you look on television, I can practice everything. The other options available to me in those instances are anger, frustration, resentment, disappointment, and a feeling of hopelessness and victimhood. One choice gives me some agency in my life, the other does not. One choice moves me forward, the other does not. Life is constantly offering up these fork-in-the-road moments, and I've realized that which path I choose is a really big deal. I love what I do, and I am immensely grateful I get to do it. I would like to stay sane and creative and energized and employed. The last decade for me has been a journey of busting through illusions, of getting my priorities straight. I try now to save the dysfunction for the art, following Flaubert's wise dictum, be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work. So you may be asking yourself, why should this matter to anyone not on a long-running television show? Well, consider this. We're all pretty much visible at this point. Everyone has and curates an audience of sorts. Given this new weird visibility we all have, I think it's useful to ask ourselves, what are we putting out there? What are we emitting from our little control towers, and what effect is that having on those who come in contact with it? I'm an optimist, but not of the delusional variety. The levels of suffering, hurt, hunger, and ignorance in the world are outrageous and unacceptable. Given all of this, if a large or even a small number of eyeballs are on me for whatever reason, I feel deeply moved to offer something nourishing, something healing, something inspiring, something kind. Will this change anything? Will it move the world forward in any way? It's my belief that it can't not. I recently came across the psychological term behavioral contagion. The gist of behavioral contagion is essentially what it sounds like. Our behavior is contagious. Now, we think we're these autonomous, independent-minded operators who are making clear-headed decisions. It's actually not true. We are porous, highly susceptible creatures whose words and actions are affecting each other constantly. We are in every moment taking cues from each other about who and how to be. The implications of this, if you really consider it, are pretty staggering. Everything is contagious. Every word, every action, every tweet, every Facebook post is a contribution to the collective. Every encounter affects us in subtle and not so subtle ways, and then that encounter affects the next encounter, and so on, and so on, and so on. We are wildly underestimating the impact we have on each other. Those of us who are visible, and by that I really mean all of us, have a beautiful and holy opportunity. We can be contagiously good. I believe in the power of words. I believe in the molecule-altering properties of kindness, compassion, selflessness, and forgiveness. These are not headline-grabbing qualities, but they're what I believe we're hungering for beneath the shouting and the finger-pointing and the fence-building.
You know, if I love what I do, I look at it as a gift, and I know that there's things that come with that, and I fully accept it, and you adapt.
Just there's a lot of wonderful, positive aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to do good with it, being able to be heard, have a platform, bring joy to people, bring awareness to issues.
No, I think I don't know. I mean, some people have a tendency to look down on regular people, and some people have a tendency to feel like, well, they're weird and awkward and different, and they live in a fishbowl and they can't be normal. I think it depends. For some people it's ego, and some people it's kind of neurosis, I think. But for me, it just happens to be my job. You know, I know that there are pros and cons that come with it. I'm not complaining. I'm very appreciative. I've been very fortunate and very blessed. So.
Something in me when I found myself in those sort of low-go rooms felt I can't do it anymore. Now, who knows what the future holds for me as an individual or for the world of celebrity at large, but my sincere hope during this time of serious personal and social, cultural, global re-examination, as perhaps best exemplified by the pandemic, is that we're going to look at what is valuable to us and what our values are, that what we celebrate is connected to values, is connected to, oh my God, this person did an amazing thing, this person does an amazing thing. The implied elitism, the sort of rarefication or the celebration of essentially of commodity in human form, perhaps will come to an end. Perhaps we'll see a different set of values demonstrated by what we revere and what we celebrate, because I suppose that celebrity is about a celebration. And I suppose our celebrities demonstrate to us what our culture is, because it shows us what we are celebrating. And perhaps this time of pandemic and renewal of hibernation, death and renewal and rebirth is telling us that our values need to radically alter.
A celebrity is one who is celebrated. What about us is worthy of celebration? I think there's a lot. I don't believe we're these miserable animals wired to maximize self-interest. I think that actually goes against our nature and causes us a lot of pain. Scientists who work at eradicating disease, they're not doing it so we can have a couple more years of being cruel to each other. We want more life, more time, so that we can have more stories, more inspiration, more opportunities to be kind. I believe deeply there can be no outer peace without inner peace, and that we always have a choice, that in every moment, we're making the world with our thoughts, our words, and our actions. I think we can all take a little better care of each other, be better examples for each other. I don't know about you guys, but this to me is really exciting stuff. This, I suspect, is how we remake the world. One word, one sentence, one story at a time.